I don't know how many times I've been asked how I feel about what's going on. I've lost count. I don't know how many times when I actually state how I feel about what's going on and how my feelings are immediately dismissed. Here's how I'm feeling. I know the situation between police and the community is only going to get worse before it gets better. Until we change our societal presumptions and our implicit, unchecked biases. There are issues with taking responsibilities for one's own actions. There are those concerns, and those are valid, and I am not rejecting those concerns. Looting and damaging your own neighborhood is not the answer, but it's a response. It is a symptom of a larger problem that has been largely ignored. This problem has to be addressed. We have to be courageous and aggressive. We have to be courageous and aggressive. Aggressive does not mean that we're violent. Aggressive means that we're strategic, that we're relentless in executing our strategy. No, this movement is not our grandparents' civil rights movement. No, this movement is not my parents' civil rights movement. No, this is a completely different era. An era where we're so connected to each other and yet we're so completely disconnected with each other. An era where people can cite multiple instances of actual racism and actual white privilege and be bombarded with equal response of, well, we're harmed too. This is the society in which we live. And thus, the Black Lives Matter movement has to become bigger than protesting and rioting in the streets. It has to be better than that. It has to be smarter than that. Someone has to take control. Someone has to be the one who says, oh, I hear your pain. I understand, and this is how we go about fixing it. But we live in a society where change has to happen like that, and we can't understand why it takes so much damn time. It takes time because the wheels of justice are deliberately slow. The echoes of Jim Crow were not resolved in 1954. The echoes of Jim Crow couldn't be resolved in 1954. It took 1964 and 1968 and 1972, and it took the election of Barack Obama. We are still under the vestiges of Jim Crow today because it's generational. We must be willing to challenge our presumptions about each other. We must be willing to be smart about how we go about dealing with the problems. I posted on Facebook a challenge for us to find the 2 or 3 things that we want to focus on and define our movement by. It doesn't mean that the other things go away. It doesn't mean that we set those aside. What it means is that we are going to focus and be strategic. The civil rights movement confronted a lot of different things over the course from 1950 to 1970. But when it was strategic and focused, it accomplished far more than when it was disparate and disheveled and disorganized. What do I want to see? What do I, some guy in Greensboro, what do I want to see? I want to see, number one, that the police, whenever there's bad acts by the police, an immediate outside investigation. No local prosecutors, no local PD, no internal investigation shall be satisfactory. Whenever there's bad acts that rise to the level of criminal action, there needs to be a grand jury immediately convened and evidence collected. Number two, I want police officers to be focused and receive focused and directed training that confront implicit bias. Not only for awareness sake, we're not going to be able to eradicate implicit bias, but we're going to confront our default position. When they see a young black man on the street, they won't immediately think criminal. They will address him based on real, tangible evidence that is not his race and not his age and not what he has on. Alone. Number three, I demand that we take ownership. Not ownership of our situation. There's so much that we can't control. We aren't in power. We have to take ownership of our response. We have to protect our communities. And we also must not ostracize those who are responding out of pain. The rioters that were looting are just as much my family as those who were protesting peacefully. We got to address the root cause. We got to address the root problem. So here's the deal. I'm just one person in Greensboro, North Carolina. I am just a guy who's a law student who's about to graduate. That's who I am. But if we get more people who are strategic and who are well thought out, who are well spoken, who are smart enough to walk and talk and communicate with each other and remain connected, we can change the movement. We can speak the language of politics and justice. We can fight in the judicial system and in the legislature. We can also fight on the streets. Because this is bigger than Michael Brown. This is bigger than Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, LeVar Jones. This is bigger than Tamir Rice. This is bigger than John Crawford. This is bigger than Ezell Ford, Oscar Grant, Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo. It's bigger than any one of those. It's even bigger than them all collected together. This is a societal change. A revolution is coming, and it will be televised, and you better be on board. Or there's going to be far more hell than what you saw in Baltimore.